So now that we're using Notepad++, there are a few things that you can do to configure Notepad++ so that you can compile and run within Notepad++. So in order to do that, you're going to have to download a plugin. So from Notepad++, come over here to plugins, go to plugins admin and just type nppexe and look for the npexec plugin. Select that and then click on install. So once it's installed, we need to set up a command to compile and a command to run. So what we need to do is we need to click on plugins, go to npexec, and then click on execute. From here, we can set up custom commands. So the custom command that I want to set up is to compile. So I'm going to go ahead and type in here for cd, which is change to a folder, change directory, and then open, close, double quotes. And then inside the double quotes, I'm going to put the $, and then open, close parentheses. And then within the parentheses, what I'm going to do is type in current directory. Okay, so Notepad++ is using this as kind of like a key for the current directory. So basically we're just telling Notepad++ to move into the current directory wherever this Java file is located. And then we're going to use the command javac and then $, open, close parentheses. And then we're going to put the file name. We're going to give this execute command a name. So we're going to do that by clicking save, and then we're going to type compile. And then we're going to hit save. Now we also want to set up a command to run the program. So we're going to use the cd, same thing, except to run the program, we're going to use Java and not javac. So we're going to remove that C part there, and we're going to come over here and we're going to type name part, because whenever we run a Java program, we don't need the entire file name. We only need the name part of the file. And I'm going to go ahead and hit save. I'm going to make this changes to run and then hit save. Okay, now if we wanted to compile and run, we can do that. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the same command, but I'm going to put the javac, $, open, close parentheses, and file name. Okay, so what this is going to do, it's going to move into this folder, compile the file, and then run the program. I'm going to hit save. I'm going to call this one compile and run and hit save. The program did compile and run when I pressed OK, but we want to set up a menu option so that we can just compile and run through the menu. So we're going to go back into plugins. We're going to go back to nppexe, and then we're going to go down to advanced options. And then down here in the bottom, you're going to see associated script. We're going to select compile, and then we're going to press add. Okay. And then what we're going to do is we're going to select run, and then we have to change this item name to run. And then we're going to hit add. Then we're going to come back here, hit compile and run, and we're going to change the item name to compile and run. And then we press add. And we also need to select place in macro submenu. It needs to restart, so press OK and go ahead and restart Notepad++ by closing and reopening. Now when you come to macro, you have your option to compile, you have your option to run. So one of the things we also need to do, which will make this a lot easier, is to set up some hotkeys for compiling and running. So under settings, go to shortcut mapper, and then what you're going to do is go to plugin commands. And then you're going to look for your compile and run. It's right here, compile, run, compile and run. Okay, so we're going to select the shortcut area, double click, and just put control, and I like to do control-1 for compile. And there's a conflict, we're going to have to go correct that conflict. And then I'm going to double click here, control, and then control-2, press OK, compile and run. Double click, control, and control-3. Now we need to find where it's conflicting. So what I'm going to do is just tab around until I see the other red. Okay, right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change this to Control Alt. Okay, so now there's no conflicts. I'm going to hit close. Now when I go to macro, you can see that there is a Control 1, a Control 2, and a Control 3. So when I hit Control 1, I compile. When I hit Control 2, I run. When I hit Control 3, I compile and run. One of the things I forgot to mention is saving when you execute your compile, your run, and your compile and run commands. So we're going to go ahead and add a save to our commands. So we're going to fix this by going to plugins. I'm going to go to np execute. I'm going to click on execute. And you have your 3 commands here. I'm going to select compile, and I'm going to add a new line before I change my directory. It's npp _ save. And that's going to save our file before we compile. So it's going to save you a lot of heartache of having to save on your own. I'm going to do the same for the run. Make sure you save it, and the compile and run. Save. Let me make sure I saved my compile, and I didn't. Good thing I went back to it. Okay, I hit OK. So now, whenever we make a change, let's just say we added space here. Instead of me having to save, if I were just to do Control 1 to compile, it will auto-save for me. Now I'm going to show you a drawback of using Notepad++ output console. Okay, so the drawback is that the space for every letter isn't always the same. So when you're trying to do things like drawing a treetop, here's a simple program. It's a triangle or a treetop. I'm counting on each space for a character to be the same width. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and save this and compile and run, and you can kind of see that it's slanted a little, right? So it's kind of leaning over to the left a little bit. That's because the width for a space isn't the same for the width for an asterisk. But if I were to go to my command prompt and compile and run this program, you can see that this triangle actually looks exactly how it's spaced out within inside of this string literal. So you kind of have to be careful with this output console. So whenever you're doing anything that requires, designing like a picture, just keep that in mind. It's best to use the actual command prompt instead of using the output console for Notepad++.